Hello and welcome. We are going to be making some brownies today, and I'm so excited to bring you this recipe because brownies for me are a comfort food that I just can't say no to. So I wrote this recipe in order to make it a little bit less guilty when it comes to making your favorite comfort food of brownies. So how have we made this more healthy? Well, first things first, I wanted to bring more fiber into the recipe because traditional brownie recipes are made with white flour, they're made with a lot of sugar, and they're not necessarily made with the highest quality of ingredients. So what we can do significantly to improve the healthy aspect of a brownie is to improve the quality of our ingredients. So for an example, the added fiber that I'm going to sneak in there is going to be the flax meal for one, and the psyllium husk. Now, this is one that you may not commonly have in your pantry already, or you may, but it's one that I use in a lot of recipes because it's such an excellent fiber for the gut. So this is, I guess, some of the most amazing ways that we're going to make this brownie a much more healthy version. We're going to reduce the sugar, and we've omitted all grain flours in case that's something that you're trying to avoid. Not necessarily saying that grains are bad, but we're going to use coconut flour instead and just a little bit of tapioca starch for the texture. The other thing I'd like to point out is we're going to be using a dark cacao or a raw cacao powder instead of a cocoa powder, which is a little bit more processed. So if you have access to that, that's again one up on the quality of the product. Instead of using a white sugar, we're going to use a coconut sugar, and this has a lot of the other nutrients still left in it rather than being processed out. We're going to use some healthy fats, some dark chocolate, some healthy organic coconut cream if you can get access to that. And then in order to make it a little bit more sweet without using as much sugar, we're going to be using berries. So again, coming back to the quality of the berry you can find, if you can get a hold of organic berries, that's even better. So let's get started. First things first, I'd like you to preheat the oven. So preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius, which is also 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's get that happening. We also need to then have a container for our brownies, a baking tray. And the baking tray can be any shape or size you wish, but approximately this size. And in order to prepare it, we're just going to put a little bit of coconut oil into the bottom of this pan so that you can, so the brownies don't stick when we take them out. So we'll get that all ready to go. And then next up, we're going to need a small saucepan. And obviously on top of the stove. Let's get that turned on so that we can start heating the coconut cream and start melting the chocolate within that. So if we were to put the chocolate straight into here, it would burn. So we're going to put 1 tin or 400 mils of coconut cream into our saucepan. And I've just got that on medium to high heat. We're going to be standing here with it, giving it a stir. So if you want to be safe, go medium, and we can let it heat nice and slowly while we do that. Okay. So we're going to heat up the coconut cream. Into that, let's also put the coconut oil. So we're going to be using 3 tablespoons of coconut oil into there. And we're just going to let that heat up while we get the dry ingredients mixed. So one of my favorite tools you'll see me use a lot is a spatula like this. This spatula is going to save you a lot of waste. And at the end, when we scrape everything out of the bowl, you might even get an extra half a brownie out of it by using a spatula. So if you've got one, great. If not, see if you can add that to your kitchen tools, and that'll save you a bunch of waste of stuff that you've paid for anyways. All right, so we'll just give that a stir, and we're just going to keep coming back to that and just check on that as it heats up. All right, next step is to mix up all of our dry ingredients. Very simple here, nothing complicated. The only thing is to make sure that if you have flax seeds, that they're already milled into a meal. So that's what we need, is the flax meal. All right, so we've got our 3 tablespoons of flax meal, our 2 teaspoons of psyllium husk. We're going to be putting in 1/4 cup of cacao powder, 1/3 cup of coconut sugar, 3 tablespoons of tapioca starch, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 cup of coconut flour, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So we'll give these a good mix, and then All we have to do is combine the two. But what you might want to do next is just go and grab out your berries. If they're frozen, that's even better, because we can mix up the frozen berries into this dry mixture, and that'll kind of toss and coat them so that you can bite into a nice berry when you bite into the brownie. So once we've got that mixed up, we'll just make sure there's no lumps in there, pressing them out. There we go. And then we'll toss in 1.5 cups, which is about 200 grams of raspberries or blueberries or blackberries, whatever you've got. The only thing is if you're using frozen strawberries, you'll probably want to chop them in half if they're too big, because they can tend to flatten inside the brownie. So there's our nice berries. Okay, so we'll put that one to the side and come back to your warming coconut cream. And if that's nice and warm now, let's take that off the heat, and you can turn that burner straight off, and then we're going to just quickly stir in the chocolate. Okay, so we've got our nice warm coconut cream there with the coconut oil in. Let's put in the chocolate, and we're going to be using about 1.25 cups or 200 grams of dark chocolate. Let's stir that until it's very evenly combined, melting through. And at the very end, we're going to add our vanilla. It's the last step. One thing you'll notice about this recipe is that there's actually no eggs in the recipe, and there's also no nuts. So in the event that you're not able to send eggs or nuts to the school, these are also brownies that can go as a healthier sweet treat for the kids at school as well. So that's another little special trick. Okay, so once the chocolate is fully combined into our nice warm coconut cream, then we can add our vanilla. So 2 teaspoons of vanilla, or thereabouts. Love a bit of extra vanilla. Give that an incorporation, and we are pretty much ready to bake our brownies. So let's combine this nice chocolatey bit with our dry ingredients. Couldn't be easier. The one thing you may want to do if you tend to make this recipe often is make yourself a premix for your pantry. So get all of the dry ingredients, measure them out, and decide whether you're going to do a double, triple, maybe quadruple batch of dry ingredients so that you can weigh them separately, put them back into the pantry, and the next time you go to make brownies, it'll be even faster. Okay, now this texture is possibly going to be a bit different to what you're used to for brownies. So what we're looking for here is just to let it do its thing. It's going to be a little bit thickened, and we are going to probably have to pat it down into your baking dish. It's a little bit different to traditional brownies because we're incorporating that extra beneficial fiber in there, which your body will thank you for. So as soon as we've got that mostly combined, we don't need to overmix. Straight into our baking dish. This is where your spatula really shines, because you have no wasted brownie going down the drain. Let's just smooth it out a little bit so that we don't have uneven sized brownies, and that's it. Straight into the oven. If you wanted, you could get more fancy and you could sprinkle some crushed nuts on top of this if you wanted a nutty brownie. Walnuts or pecans are another great way to add some extra healthy omega fats into this. But other than that, there we have it. So into the oven, approximately for about 30 to 35 minutes. It depends a little bit on the size of the dish that you've chosen. So the bigger the dish, the shorter time it'll take to cook because the brownies will be thinner. So let's pop that into the oven and see how we go. So once the brownies have had a chance to cool a little bit, they're going to be much easier to slice. So let's get into those, and the faster they can cool down, the faster you can eat brownies. You might notice a couple little sinkholes in your brownies, and that's probably where we have a concentration of the frozen berries. That's perfectly okay. That's going to taste delicious. Slice into those ones. Now the first one or two could be your little sacrificial anode, but that I guess means you get to just dig in and eat them first. There we go. Oh, yummy brownies. Okay. Now, as with most brownies, the longer they have a chance to cool, the more fudgy and chewy they get. So if you get a chance, if you can possibly hold off and wait until these can sit in the fridge for a little bit, you're going to enjoy that fudginess even more. And a couple things to look out for, depending on the size of the pan that you cooked it in, or depending on how long they actually baked for, you might notice a little bit of crumbling here. So this could be a sign that I just cooked it for just a touch too long. It's still going to be perfectly fine once they're fully cool, but you'll notice a little bit of difference in workability just while they're still warm. So just some little things you can become a better chef with for knowing. Give them a little decoration with some of our raspberries. And there we have a plate of delicious Berrilicious brownies. Much healthier than your average cafe restaurant brownie or any one that comes out of a package.